So we have seen about democracy a lot, but what are the fundamental questions of democratic politics that we are going to see today? But the particular answers we are not going to get, certain suggestions we are going to make, so that what are the challenges and reforms that can be adopted by democracy. And this will invite you or us to have our own thought, how to deal with the challenges, and how to have our own definition of democracy. That is, what are the challenges that democracy faces in our country and other countries, and what can be done to reform this democratic politics, what efforts, what suggestions can be given. How can our democracy become more democratic? Because in practice and in outcome, the things are different. So we want the democracy, what we think, what we understand, to give its outcome like that only. So democracy is the dominant form of government in the contemporary world. That is, 3/4 of the world's countries, they are democratic country. But the promise of democracy, what democracy provides us, what democracy gives us, what are the possibilities of democracy, is not still being realized anywhere in the world. Since democracy is being followed by almost 3/4 of the countries in the world, as we see, it has no challenge. That is, the monarchy, anarchy, one party, two party, all these, they are not challenging it. But still, it faces many challenges. At least 1/4 of the globe is still not democratic, not under democratic government, right? So the challenge is not just any problem. What is the challenge? Let us understand what this word means. The challenge is a difficulty that carries with its an opportunity to progress. That means if you are here and if you want to climb a cliff, then this is a challenge for you to climb the cliff. But once you climb the cliff, this difficulty is over. Now you can progress, you can go that side also. So what are these foundational, you can say, challenges we have? The existing foundational challenge which we talk about is, the first challenge is a foundational challenge. That is to make the transition of democracy and then instituting the democratic government. If you have, say, any other government, say anarchist government, monarchist government, or the army ruled government, then first we have to throw them or we have to change them so that the democracy can be established. And once this democracy can be established, we need to have a democratic government. So institutionalization has to be done, right? That is, the existing non-democratic regime, we need to bring them down, or keeping military away from controlling the government, that we have to stop, and establishing a sovereign and functional state. This is what we are interested in. The second is, this was the foundational challenge. The second is the challenge of expansion. This is the second challenge, that is the expansion. This involves that not only we talk about democracy, we apply this basic principle of democratic government not only to one place or two places, but to all the regions, whether it is a federal structure, whether it is a panchayati raj, to each region, to different social groups like the Hindus, the Muslims, the SCs, the STs, the OBCs, the linguistic differences. We have to propagate this principle to every social groups and the government institution and other institutions. So this is the expansion of democracy which we want. That is, we want to give more power to the local governments. We want this extension of federal principle, that is the central government, then the state government, then the panchayati raj, nagar nigams, etc. And also the women, which is our 50% population. We want to include them. We want to include the minority groups. Like in India, we have the Hindus as the majority community. But the Muslims, the Sikhs, the Isai, all these Isai means Christians. These are all the minority groups. We want to expand the idea of democracy to them. So this is a challenge. The third challenge is deepening of democracy, which is faced by every democracy in any form. So this involves the strengthening of the institution and the practice of democracy. That is not only talking about democracy will work. We have to deepen the root of this democracy. That is, we want to strengthen the institution that help people's participation and control. So this requires an attempt to bring down the control and influence of the rich and powerful people in making governmental decisions. When we talk about the political reforms, generally the suggestion, people give suggestion, institution give suggestions, some good people, they give some advices. So all the suggestions and proposals and advices about overcoming different challenges which we just saw for the democracy, these are called as democratic reform or political reform. So let me tell you, the foundational challenge, the challenge of expansion, the deepening of democracy, all these comes under democratic reforms or political reforms. If all the countries we talk about, they don't have same challenges. Sri Lanka have different challenge. Belgium has different challenge. We have different challenge. So all these, there is not a single recipe to solve the problems, to have the political reforms, because same recipe cannot be applied to each and every country. We cannot prescribe a procedure of a car repair. Say if a car is broken, then to repair a car, we need to know the model of the car. That is, we need to know the type of country. Then only the defect in the car or the tools which are applied to settle down the broken car can be used, right? So we need to understand the scenario of the country, then only we can work for it. Then we can develop some proposals at the national levels for reforms, but the problem or the real challenge, it may not lie at the national level. But let us think of some broad guidelines that can be kept in mind while devising ways and means of political reforms in India. If you say that political reforms can just be brought down, written down in a piece of paper, it may not be possible. But there are certain things of political reforms that we can talk about. The first is, it is quite tempting to use the legal way, to use the Qanun for reforming, changing, or making the politics good, to try to make the new laws, to ban things which are undesirable, but this temptation needs to be resisted. That is, carefully devised changes in law, this can help to discourage the political practices which are wrong. The things which are going wrong in the politics, we can devise changes in law. And a change, for example, in cricket, the leg before wicket, if a person, he gets the ball or he is being bowled and he put his feet in front of the wicket, he is never going to be bowled out. So there is a rule of leg before wicket, that if your feet is in front of wicket and the ball is going to hit the wicket, you are out. But only LBW is not going to solve the cricket. We have to take this idea to the players, to the coaches, to the administrator. Similarly, if you want the democratic reforms, you have to go to the political activists, to the parties, to the movements and political conscious citizens. Then only the reforms can be done. Then any legal change may throw back. That means must carefully look at what the results it will have on the politics. It may be counterproductive. Sometimes the result may be counterproductive. For example, in various states, if a person is having more than 2 children, then he is stopped or banned from contesting in panchayat election. But this is a counterproductive thing. Actually, you are loosening or you are denying the democratic opportunity of that person. Just because he is having 2 kids or more than 2 kids, 3 or 4 kids, he may not be debarred from contesting in the election. So this is which is coming back. We have right to information. We have different ways. For example, this empowers the people to find out what is happening in the government. They can act as activists. They can act as watchdogs for democracy. So, a law of this kind of RTI, etc., will help the corruption and which is going on in the political reforms. We need to supplement the existing laws that ban corruption and impose very strict penalties. This is what we can do. The next thing comes is democratic reforms are to be brought about principally through political practice, because most of the laws are made by whom? Through political parties only. So the main focus of political reforms or changing or amending the political structure of the country should be on ways to strengthen democratic practice. The most important concern should be to increase and to improve the quality of political participation by ordinary citizens. That is, the people who are activists, who understand politics, who want to do things for the masses or the marginalized class. They should come in the politics. So any proposal for political reform should think not only about what is the good solution, but also how to implement and how to do it. Means just talking about a political reform will not work. We need to know how to implement it. We need to understand how to solve it. Okay. So let us understand these guidelines and keep them in the mind. And then we try to talk about specific challenges of democracy and what are the measure of reforms we can adopt. So let me take an example. The example is like this. The doctor is absent. In Uttar Pradesh, the government got a survey done and they found that the doctor who are posted in the rural PHC, primary health centers, they are not going there. They are practicing in the town and they are happy making money. So even the villagers who are having very trivial problems like the flu, etc., they have to go to the private doctors for very common ailments. So what are the reform proposals? So these are the proposals. What do you say? Just read them and tell me what are the proposals you can think of. So the basic thing is, the village panchayat should be given the power to write the annual report of the doctor, which should be read out in the Gram Sabha meeting. This is the reform which is good. Let us take one more problem, political funding. Now the challenge is, on the average, every candidate who contests the last Lok Sabha elections owned a property of more than 1 crore. And now there is a fear that these people who are wealthy people or those with their support can afford to fight elections. And most of the political parties, they are dependent on very big houses, big business houses to get their money. The worry is that the role of money in politics will reduce what little voice the marginalized or the poor people have in the democracy. So what are the reform proposals? Now just read them and tell me what are the reform proposals. The answer is, the citizens should be encouraged to give more donation to the parties and to political workers. And there should be a state funding of elections. So parties should be given some money by the government to meet their election expenditure. So this one is the better one. Second one is the better the political reform as far as the political funding is concerned. Now coming to redefining the democracy, because we have seen the actual definition of democracy, democracy is a form of government which the rulers are elected by the people. This we understand. So we then looked about many cases and we actually added democracy. We added various other definitions, or you can say various other things to make the definition more stronger. That is, the rulers which we elect or which people elect must take all the major decisions. The elections must offer a choice. That is, if you don't like people, you don't like rulers, you can change them. And the choice and opportunity should be available to all the people on the equal basis. Everyone should have equal vote and the possibility of choosing, electing the you can say the Shasak. And the exercise of this choice must lead to a government limited by basic rules and of the Constitution and citizen right. A government should be confined by the Constitution, and the government should do only work in the citizens' right and might. Now you might be disappointed that the definition did not refer to any high ideals that we associate with the democracy. But it allowed us to make a clear distinction between what is a democratic government and what is not. Right? So you must have noticed that in the course of our discussion of various democratic government and politics, there are certain things which we go beyond the definition. That is, we discussed democratic rights at length and noted that these rights are not limited just to vote, right of vote or stand in elections, fight in elections, and just form political organization. That is, social and economic rights that a democracy should offer to the citizen. This is also very important. We have taken a power sharing as a spirit of democracy, as we saw in the Belgium, the Dutch and French. They got equal share of power, and discuss how this power sharing between governments and social groups like in India, every social group like SCs, OBCs, Hindu, Muslims, they have equal rights. So this is the spirit of democracy. This is necessary for a democracy. And we also saw how democracy cannot be just rule for the majority, like what happened in Sri Lanka. Sinhala and the Buddhist people, they did their majoritarian activity, and the country was broken apart. So how to respect the minority voice, how to listen to the minority voice, this is also very important, necessary for the democracy. So our discussion of democracy has gone beyond the government and its activity. So we have discussed about some outcomes that what we can expect from the democracy. So if we have a democracy, what are the outcomes that we generally see for it, right? In doing so, we have not gone against the definition of democracy anywhere, but we begin the definition, that is the minimum thing which we are expecting from a democracy, what the democracy is providing to the country, to the democracy, because democracy is all about people. So this is all about